What is going on, y'all? We are back with the second episode. This is already getting really good for the come up interview. And we got my guy. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's good, everybody? My name is Kizzy. I go by Is That Kizzy at Is That Kizzy on all social media platforms. I've been a producer for about 15 years now. Been an A&R for almost a year at a company called Hot Producers Only out in Atlanta. And I also do talent acquisition and sales at one of the biggest PR and marketing agencies in the industry. Um, I came up inspired by Dr. Dre, Scott Storch, Quincy Jones, all the OGs that I was listening to when I was young. And after I discovered FL Studio, well, been history since then.
Wow, so we're off to a crazy start. First of all, your resume is absolutely incredible. You obviously have a lot of knowledge. You got the skills. You got the sounds. It's crazy. I mean, if y'all haven't heard his stuff, you need to go ahead and check it out because he's got the R&B game on lock. And as you know, I love to listen to R&B, and I just feel like R&B beats are just it's an unmatched genre. Like I feel like you really have to know what you're doing when you're creating R&B style beats because there's just a smoothness to it, but I could go on and on about this. Listen, when it comes to you though, you've been doing this for 15 years. You're really an old head now. I hate to put you in the
Yeah.
box, but you're an old head now. I want to know from you, how did you even get interested in this? Like, what got you started and wanting to do this since you've been doing it for so long?
I'm not gonna lie. I started listening to hip hop when I was, I'd say, 8 years old or so. And one of the first songs I ever heard was Still Dre by Dr. Dre. And as soon as I heard that chord progression, I was hooked. Like from there, I went on. I discovered Tupac, Nas, 50 Cent, all the OG rappers. And one day, I was on LimeWire. Nobody banned this video. I was on LimeWire, and I accidentally discovered FL Studio. Like I don't know how it just came up, and I decided, yo, I'm gonna download this, see what it's about. And I discovered that it was a beat making platform. So from there, I got hooked, man. Like I started making beats, and they all sounded like garbage, but like I started watching the earlier beat making videos, like the Ryan Leslie's, the Cardiacs, all those OGs, and I was started learning from there. Once I got FL Studio, I just kept going, and eventually taught myself how to play the piano, and here we are today.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So I want to know more actually about you teaching yourself how to play piano because there's such a big discussion, as we know in the producer community, about, do you need to know music theory? Do you have to be classically trained? Should you use loops? Should you not? All these things, right? And you have some training, well, training yourself. How, would you say that knowing how to play the piano, has that assisted you and essentially helped you in your production now? And if you didn't teach yourself how to do that, do you think that your beats would be where they are right now?
Learning the piano has definitely been huge for me because especially since I started off making a lot of West Coast stuff and then I transitioned to R&B. So with specifically with those two genres, West Coast music comes from funk and G-funk and soul, and R&B does as well. And a lot of those genres are extremely musical. The chord progressions are important, the voicings are important. So for those genres specifically, it's been very useful to know music theory, to know how to play the keys because a lot of the melodic ideas I'll get, like I won't be able to put them out by just clicking because that's just not how my brain works. I want to sit on the keyboard and I want to play it out to make sure it feels right. Um, if I didn't know music theory, would it hold me back? Probably not, because as we know, like producers like Southside, Lex Luger, all these guys, they don't really know music theory. They just click things in and they're the best in the game, right? So does it give me an edge, especially because I'm doing R&B? Yes, but for a lot of music that's out today, you don't really need music theory. It's just a bonus to have. It also makes it easier when, let's say, you're listening to a record and you're inspired by it. If you know music theory, your ear will pick up things much easier. Like it's easier for me to recognize a chord progression on a dope song versus someone who doesn't know music theory. So that's kind of the edge I have. Is it mandatory? No. Should you do it? I think yes, because it's extremely important, but it won't hold you back if you don't know it.
Yeah, I think that's a great, thing to discuss because like I took piano lessons when I was a kid. I also took voice lessons. So those kind of things stick with you even because I did lessons up until I finished high school. And so it definitely has helped me a lot, just even though I don't have like an actual like piano that I'm playing, but it still helps when I'm making a melody or whatever, or just even hearing an artist, if I'm working with an artist, and since I know a lot of stuff with vocals, I can kind of assist if a note is wrong, like I know if it sounds off or if you're flat or too sharp or need to work on your breath control and all that stuff. So I can say at least for myself as well that I do believe it's assisted me, but I don't believe that like I would be terrible if I had no knowledge, but it does help. As you mentioned, it is a bonus. Okay, so obviously you've been making beats for so long, and I think it's really cool because you and I have discussed the fact that like we have been in this game for a minute, so there's so many things that have changed and developed. And I wanted to get more insight on what do you feel has changed since you started like being online? And I'll specifically say in regards to like selling beats online, right? Because we came from like a SoundClick era, and so I just wanted to pick your brain about that and get some insight on how do you feel things have changed for better or for worse now.
Um, I think there's obviously both good changes and bad changes. I'll start with the negative so we can end on a positive note. I don't like talking about negative things too much. The one thing I feel like has negatively changed is the fact that everything is so easily accessible. Like back when we started producing, just getting FL Studio was a hassle. Getting plugins to work on an old computer was a hassle.
Yeah.
Like learning how to make beats, we didn't have a million tutorials on YouTube that we could just sit and watch step by step, follow the process, and learn
We
how to
were
make
the tutorial.
exactly. Like when I was coming up, for me, it was a lot of trial and error. I would have like a playlist of songs that I was inspired by, and I would like literally imitate the drums. Like I probably did the Still Dre drums on FL Studio 20 times before I figured out how to do it properly as a kid. So I feel like now a lot of people have a lot of easy access to plugins, to FL Studio, the tutorials, how to do everything, which is great for an up and coming producer. But I feel like it also sort of saturated everything because everybody and their grandmother's a producer now. And I feel like a large majority of these producers aren't doing it for a career, they're doing it for fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do music for a hobby, be my guest. But what it's done is it's created this kind of thing where a lot of producers who are hobbyists want to work with the Metro Boomins, with the Foreign Techs, with all the big producers, but you're not taking it seriously as a career, but you still want to work with these guys. So that's kind of what I feel negatively impacted it. In terms of positive, there's so much. Like we get to see the behind the scenes of a lot of records with these in studio videos, with the beat making videos. We get more of an inside look to what goes on in the industry with all these panels, these interviews, like a lot of the stuff Revolt does, the Revolt Summit interviews, the panels they do, those are incredible. They're full of knowledge. We didn't have that back in the day. Social media, it gives artists and producers an incredible way to build an audience, to create their own brand and not have to be dependent on the industry or a record deal or a publishing deal. So in that sense, it's great. And in terms of selling beats, uh, I don't want to be an asshole, but like based on what it used to be 15 years ago and where we are now, I think things are going kind of downhill
You said, "Ew."
because we used to sell MP3 leases for like $200 a pop. And now we're selling
Oh,
them for like $30. That's
and a
kind of
and a
crazy.
chicken sandwich and maybe a drink too. And
But but overall, I feel like over time, beats became commoditized and
yep,
lost their intrinsic value. Whereas like a beat used to be so important and such an essential part of the song, and it
yeah,
still is. But I feel like people don't look at it because
yeah.
people are making 10 beats a day. and they all sound the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. And you know, not even to cut you off, but that is a very real thing because I I believe now versus then, a lot of producers took pride in having their own sound, right? So like you didn't want to sound like somebody else, like everybody had their own thing. And I think that was really cool because we were online when Johnny Giuliano was making beats, heavily like selling them online. I mean, Vibe Hits, Superstar O, DJ Pan One was obviously been there forever, so he was on there as well. And so there were all these producers, Tone Jones, who I'm sure you heard,
Yeah,
and so all these guys that really locked in on their sound, and there was a pride in having your own sound. And I definitely feel like we came from that era. That's why it's always interesting when people say like, "Oh, like I'm sure maybe you guys like, oh, your beats like sound the same," but like that was a good thing. Like you wanted your beats to sound the same because if they sounded like somebody else's beats, you didn't have it unlocked. So
exactly.
but now it's like, well, they sound the same, and you got to be this like extra different or whatever. But there's a pride in having your own sound. But now it's seen as like this bad thing, like, oh, if your beats sound the same, and it's like, yo, that's my sound. Like I've locked in, that kind of thing. So I do feel like on that note, it's just interesting to see how things have changed. Like you mentioned with the accessibility and how people look at beats now, right? Because they are so accessible to get. You can get beats really any way. You can download them for free. You can get them on YouTube. You got
Yeah.
free for profit beats now, and all these things that are happening that really didn't exist. I mean, I definitely believe that things shifted in regards to how beats were sold with the free download era when Cash Money AP started doing his free thing, blew up his
Yeah.
channel and things like that. And so I wanted to know from you, do you feel like producers nowadays um have kind of lost a sense of self in regards to having their own like identity in the game, right? Because do you feel like they're essentially wanting to be the next producer? So they may see someone they're copying everyone. I don't know. Maybe that's just how I feel. Like I feel like a lot of producers want to copy. They see someone successful, which is fine. You learn from people, but it's like everything is the same. Everyone's business is the same. I'll make a change to my website and somehow if I don't know you, like some people I know, you know what I mean? But I'll see people I've never heard of, and I'm like, wait, that is exactly what I said. Or my ad is like, that is exactly what I'm saying on my ad right now. So do you feel like that has become more of a problem where people, I don't know if it's they're scared or if they just don't know how they can be themselves in this market. But I just don't feel like we were like that. We just did our thing. Like there wasn't a, oh, I want to be like him. Like I'm inspired by him, but I still got my thing over here. Like if that makes sense. Or what are your thoughts on that? I know I said a lot, but um
Uh, I don't know if producers alone are to blame for that.
right, right,
Because the way I see it is when we were coming up, music was so diverse. Just in hip hop, if you listen to hip hop records from, let's say, early 2000s to 2010, let's say, for example,
right,
even the early trap stuff, the early Future, Thug, the stuff Zaytoven was doing, Jeezy, Gucci, all this stuff, there were a lot of artists, but every single artist sounded different. Like you could listen to a Jeezy track and then you would go and listen to a Gucci track. They would both be produced by Zay, but both songs would sound completely different because the artists have their own unique style. I
right,
think what happened is specifically during, like, a little bit before and during COVID, people first being stuck home, I think mental health had a huge impact on the sound of the music.
of
That's where
course.
we started hearing a lot of pain music, a lot of the
Yeah,
stuff that's popular now. What what I believe happened is once that wave started, every artist followed that wave. Like a lot of the music we hear now is either some trap shit like Lil Baby, Key Glock, and all those guys, or it's some pain music. And because that's what's on the charts and that's what's popular, obviously producers are going to make that kind of music. when we were coming up, the charts, like you could listen to the Billboard Top 200 and every single song sounded different and unique.
It was
So we
so
had no
diverse.
choice. We had no
Yep,
choice but to be diverse. Now it's like at least 10 songs on the Billboard chart sound the same. So like
yep,
producers see that, and to them it's like, okay, this is what's popping. So that's what
yep.
I'm going to do. So I don't want to blame producers entirely. Like the industry has a
As a
huge part
whole.
to play in that as well with their algorithms and what's popping and the whole funnels that they want to have with this type of music that they want to promote. So that's kind of my perspective on that.
No, see, that's great insight, and more so, I just wanted to stir the pot a little and get some insight, you know what I mean, make the interview even juicier. No, so that's a really good point, because a lot of music is starting to sound the same, which, as you said, there is this lack of like people wanting to sound different, and there's artists that feel like they sound different but do not sound different. They sound like artists that I've heard, and there has been like a lack of that. Again, I just say sense of pride of being yourself and doing something different. And now that we're so used to like certain type of music, when someone is different, people don't really know how to like respond to it, right? They're like, oh, this is too different, let's go back to like the little baby 12, you know what I mean?
A
And
great a great example is Kendrick's album.
yeah,
After he won that Grammy, the amount of shit talking I saw on Twitter was
yeah,
ridiculous. But his album was the most standout album all year.
yeah, yeah. And so that's so true. Like the Grammys have really shed light on a lot of people's musical opinions about things and how they're upset about certain things. But it is very interesting to see how music has changed, over the years. And I mean, I don't really know if we're gonna get back to a point where things are super different and diverse. I mean, I kind of feel like we're at a point of where we're at, you know what I mean? But I am hoping that there is more musical collaborations that really like stand out, like back years ago when we first started. Like I don't know, where music just had a different kind of feel to it, you know what I mean? And people weren't afraid to, I don't want you to say afraid, but people were more inclined to just do stuff that was different, and fresh and new and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that comes along. But hey, if that's where we're at, it's all about adapting and things like that. And so speaking of adapting, though, how have you adapted with all these changes? That like we mentioned about music, sounding the same and kind of standing out and things like that. How have you adapted to still keeping your own sound, but making it modern and current to still be, interesting to a potential artist for like a placement?
Well, the way I see it is as personally as a producer, I love to study music as a whole. So I watch a lot of documentaries about like stuff in the 70s, early R&B stuff, early soul stuff. And if you look at a lot of the hit songs today, like a great example is Hitmaker. So Hitmaker, he he does a lot of sample interpolation from like the early 2000 stuff, like sort of what Diddy was doing early on. And if you look at a lot of the music, a lot of them have the same chord progressions, the same melodic patterns, the same drum patterns. It's really just the sound selection itself that really evolved. So we went from having acoustic drum sets, the 808 machine being discovered in in the 80s, early 80s, to now like in '05 we had Zaytoven come out with the 808. You had T-Pain with the auto tune and all of that. So obviously I adapted sonically with my sound selection by using more modern sounds, and there's no problem with that. A lot of the sounds are incredible. In terms of business wise, I had to adapt as well with getting back on the YouTube uploads, going into email marketing and all these things. But because of the way I approach my brand and my music, I think my mindset has always been a little different because my goal was never to make a living selling beats and just chill at home. Like I've always wanted to be part of the industry. I've wanted to be an exec. I wanted to be in the rooms, breaking artists, breaking records, putting records together, like actually having an impact on the industry and changing maybe the direction we're headed in. So I haven't really like taken too much into like focusing on selling versus trying to create my own brand as not only a producer, but as someone who's knowledgeable about music and the industry. So that's kind of the approach I took when I saw things shifting is like everybody wants to sell beats, but that's e-commerce. At the end of the day, because there are so many beats, it's a commodity. And no matter how much you do, if that's the only thing you're focusing on, you're going to fall behind. So my focus shifted to I want to build a brand to where even if I'm not selling beats, which I'm gonna be honest, like with the listeners here, I probably haven't sold a beat in like 6 months, but that's not my main source of income. I'm an A&R and I work in a marketing firm for music, so that's where I get my main income from. So my goal is really to go in the industry and do the music. Like I don't treat it as I just want to make money. I don't really care about making money off selling beats. I want to make good songs. I want to make good music. That's what matters to me the most.
Man, that is a word right there. And there's a lot to touch on with that. So one, I do appreciate your transparency and honesty and the fact that, you said, hey, I haven't sold a beat in like 6 months, because a lot of people want to say, oh, every day I'm cranking them out, every beat sale, screenshot, and which is whatever. Because I do think in our industry, in the online space, I mean, there is a lot of emphasis and focus on how much money you're making in regards to selling beats, right? And I was talking about this. I've talked about this with you. I think that we've lost sight of the actual music part of it. Like, of course, I like to make money. Who doesn't?
Who
I
doesn't?
who doesn't? Count it up. But I also enjoy making music. That's what I started. I didn't even know you could make money like that online to begin with. I just thought it was super fun when I was in high school making a beat, and putting sounds together and like, oh wow, I did this and whatever, and trying different things. So I never, and I'm sure you feel that same way. Like I didn't have that mindset of like, yo, I gotta get rich off this, and I'm gonna get every dime I can get from someone off this beat. So, um, I think it's really cool that you're transparent about like, hey, like this isn't my main source of income, and this is what I am doing, to generate income. And one thing that you mentioned is the fact that you're doing like YouTube and different types of videos. I know you're going to be coming out with a sample making course. Anyway, I'm just excited. I had to say it in the beginning. But I know you're coming out with more products and services to like help producers. You got the Twitter guide that's super dope. And things like that. I sound like an ad right now. I'm just super proud of you on what you're doing.
I'll
So
take I'll take the free promo all day long.
yeah, so I gotta throw it out there. But with that being said, I have noticed a shift in the fact that these producers who are already making comfortable living selling beats online, right? Now they're going on YouTube. They're creating content because they're seeing that, oh wow, okay, I'm good on the money part, I'm making sales, cool. Now I need to get on YouTube because producers are going to want to hear about this. Got to make producer content. So I'm noticing that a lot of these producers that are doing 6, 7 figures, are wanting to be more like YouTube influencer content creators, which I think is cool. I also think it's a little humorous too because I always feel like that's gonna happen. Like people see it's like, oh yeah, I should probably get on YouTube. Because the producer market is an easier market, I feel like, in a lot of producers' minds to reach out to, right? Because producers need samples, producers need, certain things that maybe they feel like as in to an artist audience, it's a little you just have to be different when it comes to marketing yourself. But for producers, you get either a couple placements, you get some sales, you're in, baby. Like, or you got a good
Yeah,
personality, you're there. So I just think it's funny that you said that you're really focusing on some more like content and things like that because I've noticed that too, even with producers who are doing bigger numbers, 6, 7 figures in their business, they are getting on YouTube. One, because you can get paid on YouTube too. So of course they're looking at that as another source of income. And to be quite honest, even with what you mentioned, a lot of producers, even if they are making full-time livings off of selling beats online, they're not just selling beats online typically. They have other sources of
yeah,
income that are coming through, whether it's sample packs or, you know, consultation services or whatever they're doing outside of that. So it's very interesting. You're not alone in that sense. And I've always found it interesting how like people I know that are extremely talented that are not selling a lot of beats. It almost pisses me off a little because I'm like, when I listen to your beats, they're so freaking dope that I'm like, why are they not? Anyway, like I'm about to jump through the screen to really understand why this is happening. And I've told you this, like I don't get it, but we're gonna figure it out. Now you talked about email marketing, and I want to speak on this because, as I said, a lot of like the bigger producers now are getting into their email marketing because of Heat. Heat is a company that like targets producers and stuff like that, and they're helping out some of these bigger producers with their email marketing campaigns because apparently didn't realize this. A lot of bigger producers, even though they're selling a lot of beats online, don't really do email marketing. Some of them don't. They didn't do it before, but now they have like an email marketing plan. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's incredible. So your email marketing, what one, why did you start getting into it? And what's your like strategy when it comes to emails? Because everyone's different.
So the reason I got into it is honestly, Nipsey inspired me at first with what he was doing with his Proud to Pay thing, with the $1,000 mixtapes, exclusive community, exclusive access. What that kind of showed me is you have to have ownership of your client base because YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everything could disappear tomorrow. Like somebody could decide I'm shutting everything down tomorrow. If that's gone, all your followers are gone, all your fan base, your entire fan base basically just disappears into thin air and you have no control over it. So by having an email list, I have access to my fans directly. I can contact all my customers directly. And no matter what happens, that email list is exported on an Excel sheet. So no matter what platform disappears tomorrow, I have the contacts and the email. So I can always reach out to my client. My strategy with email is honestly, I treat it less as a business thing and more as I approach it more as an educator. Like because I have 15 years in music, I have a lot of knowledge that a lot of up and coming artists and producers might not have. So I use my email list to just give them free gems, ask them to send me their music, listen to it, give them feedback. Like it's really just about giving them knowledge about the industry that I have. Like great example would be 2 weeks ago, I wrote my email list an email about what we do at our PR agency to help artists break, and like some insider info on what it takes to break an artist. And the reception on that email was pretty good. I got a few replies that were very appreciative and it opened their eyes on how what it really takes to break an artist because a lot of people think it's just going on social media and posting your stuff, but they don't realize that all these big artists that are popping off have put minimum $250,000 behind them. Like just to get a song on the charts and on the radio, it costs you at least $250,000 because Billboard doesn't just chart any artist. People think these things like these blog articles, these mentions in the media happen for free. They don't. Everything's paid for. Every article, every blog post, every song that's on the playlist, everything is paid for. So a lot of the artists that I sent that email to didn't know that and opened their eyes like, oh shit, like I actually have to be serious. I have to put money behind my brand. So my goal with my email list is really just to educate people versus sell. If I get sales through it, fantastic. But my primary thing is really I just want to help artists and producers understand the game and understand how they can grow and improve.
No, see, I love that you said that you're so focused on helping and educating because I feel like that's something that we both have a commonality on is that we do enjoy helping people. I almost feel like I like helping people to a fault. Like I just want to help everybody I can. And so, I think it's awesome that there's still, people like you who want to help, right? Because as I mentioned, like of course I make a living off of what I do, and I'm very grateful for that. However, like I get more joy out of seeing an artist or a producer succeed than I get through the PayPal notification or Stripe or
100%.
whatever, Like that really is what fuels me. And I'm sure I know you can relate to that feeling of like, man, when someone says like, yo, I did this because you gave me this advice, or like, oh man, this turned out great because I saw a tweet of yours or I watched a video. It's like, oh man, like that's amazing that we can have that kind of impact and that you're having that kind of impact on these artists and producers that you're giving advice to and using your knowledge instead of gatekeeping this information. And of course, gatekeeping does, since you're not gatekeeping, it doesn't mean that you can also not offer services and things like that,
Yeah.
because that's just a way to get a more one-on-one. So I think that's awesome. I just think it's really cool that you're also providing these free gyms to producers and to artists to just help them on their journey and giving them insight, especially with the knowledge that you have. It's great that you're sharing it. You know what I mean? I think that's really incredible, that you're willing to do that, because there's some people who wouldn't want to share that information or whatever. So,
And and I think that's based off fear.
yeah,
Like I think a lot of people feel like if I give someone all the gems for free, they look at it as competition. But
right,
I don't. Like I know some 16, 17-year-old producers who I've given advice to who have like 10 times more placements than I do based on the advice I gave them. I don't see
yeah,
them as competition because one, like I'm doing my own thing. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm trying to head. So me giving
right,
them the advice is like, look, you want to get placement, you want to be in the industry, you want to be successful. Here's based on my experience what you should do. And the second thing for me is when I was coming up, I didn't have this info. I didn't have
right,
access to all these resources. So why would I let these younger producers who are coming up go through the same fucking struggle that I went through when I
right.
have the knowledge and I could give it to them for free?
Exactly. Like, because some people, just want you to struggle so that you can feel how they felt. And it's like, why?
Why?
If I if I can help someone, I'm going to try to, as long as I have time willing and things like that. So I think that's really great. So we're gonna start wrapping this up because again, we could go all day. You know what I mean? You and I, we've had some great conversations just prior to this, and I really want to do a part two with you if you're down because
Down for
like
sure.
the stuff that we gotta talk about, man, this can't be put in one conversation. So I'm just putting that out there. We're gonna get a part two in. So what I want to talk to you about, right, is you're doing all of these things right now. How are you managing everything, right? You're doing the PR firm, you're A&Ring, you're making beats too, you're creating content, sample making courses, Twitter guides, you're doing all these things. How are you managing all this?
Honestly, a lot of it is just like being disciplined enough to have like I don't want to say I have a schedule because I'm honestly a pretty chaotic person and I function better in the chaos than having a schedule because I don't like being told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. So
Right,
like I kind of go with the flow, but the way I structure things is specifically like the thing that is the most time consuming for me is content creation because it takes time to record the videos, do the editing, doing the captions, hashtags, all this, all writing all the copy and everything. So the way I approach things is I try to batch my work. So when it comes to making music, a general day for me will go like this. I'll wake up, let's say around 8 a.m. I'll wake up, have my coffee, all that, and I'll go sit in front of the computer and just do some admin work. So answer emails, schedule some tweets for the day if I have to, schedule content for the day, whatever needs to be done. Then usually from like 11 to like 4 or 5-ish, I'll be working on the marketing agency stuff. So contacting clients, dealing with all of that. And then I'll spend the rest of my night just working on music. So I'll have like 5, 6 hours to just sit and cook up. And then on the weekends, usually on Sundays, is when I'll schedule my video uploads, schedule my content uploads. And on Saturdays, I use Saturdays as a content. So I use the entire day to just record all the content and then I'll edit everything the next week. So I'm just trying to keep myself as organized as possible, but also give myself the freedom of still being able to do what I want when I want it because I chose this lifestyle for a reason. I like working from home. I like being my own boss. I like doing things my way. But to do this, really, you have to have a certain schedule. You have to have a certain self discipline because it's very easy to be sitting and making beats and be like, you know what, fuck it, bro, I want to go play some Call of Duty. And it'll happen sometimes. Like I'll have off days where like I'll maybe make one, two beats. I'll be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm sick of this. I'm gonna go play some Call of Duty for a bit and go out and hang out with my friends. But really it comes down to having a schedule, being able to manage your time and being self-disciplined enough to not let the temptations get you. Because that's really what is gonna get in your way. Like most of the time when I'm working, my phone is out of sight on airplane mode. Don't reach me, don't contact me. Like if I want to talk to somebody, I'll open the Twitter website directly and go check my messages. I won't open my phone. Like I don't want distractions when I'm working. And that's what keeps me focused the most.
Well, that's super helpful. Okay, awesome. And the next thing I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to a producer, and what advice would you give to an artist? Because you work in both markets.
Main advice I would give to a producer is don't be afraid to experiment. Even if you're not releasing the music, like just try new things out. Try different genres. Like while I was coming up, I've believe it or not, I've made heavy metal beats on FL Studio with the cheapest, most shitty electric guitar plugins in the world. But what that helped me with is understanding the structure of these different songs. Because as a producer, like yes, being a hip hop producer is great, but if I'm being honest with you, the money isn't in hip hop. The money is in R&B, the money is in pop, the money is in indie, rock, gospel music, soul music. These are
Country,
country is ridiculous.
it's so
Right?
ridiculous.
It's like, and it's good music.
It's good music. I like country, and country trap is like really making a place in the market. And I've been
Yeah.
getting into that because I love country a lot. So mixing both genres has been great. But continue. I'm sorry, I just got excited.
But yeah, so first thing I would say is don't be afraid to experiment, try different sounds, listen to different genres of music. And I would highly suggest producers listen to music before the 2000s because a lot of the hit records today, a lot of the popular records today are heavily, heavily influenced by 60s, 70s, 80s music. A great example is Weekend's album, Don FM. It's a disco album. It's heavily influenced by the 80s. Like the whole sound comes from the 80s. So that would be the two things I would say to producers. And the other thing is don't be afraid to just reach out and network with people and collab with people. Like don't look at it as a business thing. Look at it as I just want more producer friends. I just want more people to work with. Because if you look at any interview that major producers make, they'll always tell you that all the best records came from collaboration. And this comes back to what I said earlier. If you go back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, there is no one man band. Quincy Jones is the greatest producer of all time, and I'll have that argument with anybody in the world and I'll fight them for that. Quincy does not play the keys, Quincy doesn't play the guitar. Quincy brought in hundreds of musicians to work on the Thriller project. And every great record came from collaboration because one mind won't have every idea. That bass guitarist might have a crazy idea for a piano line. You never know. So be open to collaborating, not just on sending loops back and forth, but I don't know if you remember this, but the way we used to collab back in the day is we used to send FLPs back.
Oh man, yeah, FLP is like I didn't even know about sending loops until recent, like not recent, but like a little bit later on because it was just sending FLPs. That was it.
Like we would have email threads with like 20, like we sent it back and forth to each other like 20 times. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
just added this melody. Oh, I just added this little hi-hat. Let me remove this. I removed this. I did that. Like, and that type
yeah.
of collaboration was incredible because we would both get to put our input in a direct way versus a loop is very indirect. It's like, here's the melody. Now you do the drums, do what you do with it versus we're both contributing to the melody and to the beat. So that's what I would say. So listen to different genres, try different genres, and be open to collabing without expecting a business benefit. What I would give advice I would give to artists would be one, uh, have a consistent release schedule. Like a lot of I understand why artists don't have consistent release schedules because artists, in my experience, are extremely chaotic people. They make music when they feel like it, when the inspiration hits them, and I completely understand that. That's completely normal. But find a way to stockpile songs for, let's say, 3 months and have a release schedule of releasing at least a song a month. Because I read this post a couple of weeks ago where there are, if I'm not mistaken, over 50,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify daily. And if I'm not mistaken, we broke the 100,000 mark. If you want to stand out in music today, you need to be in front of people. Second thing would be focus on your brand and your marketing. Because no matter how good your music is, if your brand isn't out there, if you're not in front of people, if you're not entertaining, you're not going to be successful. I was listening to this podcast yesterday. What was it? I completely forgot what it was. And oh, it was on the Brandman Network. Sean Brandman, he has a marketing firm. He does create incredible gems for artists. I
Right.
suggest any artist go and look up the Brandman Network. It's full of gems. They were talking about how to break artists in 10 steps or less. And I forgot where I was going with this.
It's all
Oh yeah,
good.
the consistent release schedule and being in front of an audience. There's a difference between being an artist and being an entertainer. Those who are successful are entertainers. Their brand as a whole is entertaining. Great example is Drake with the marketing he did for Her Loss. All those hentai stories that he put up, like that was a genius marketing tactic, and it was extremely entertaining for his fans to see, like, yo, what the fuck is this? Why is Drake putting up hentai right before his album release? But like that helped get the album marketed properly. So have a consistent release schedule and focus on the marketing. Have content around the project you're dropping. And it doesn't necessarily need to be, let's say, you're dropping a single, you don't need to have a music video. Why don't you have a little short film like Metro did with his album? Or have behind the scenes videos of making the record. Like these are all things that your fans are going to want to see, and that's going to make them feel more connected to you, because just hearing the music on its own is great, the song is good, but if the fan doesn't feel a connection to the artist, they're not going to stick around. Like, because I do a lot of business stuff, I spend a lot of time studying human behavior, and one thing I've learned is that humans are extremely attached to stories. So have a story with your brand, have a story with your release, have a story with your project that's going to stick in someone's mind and is going to make them want to keep coming back for more. That's what I would tell artists.
Man, the gyms, I've never liked using that word like gyms, because sometimes people will say, what are gyms? The gyms that they're dropping are not really gyms, it's just basic stuff. But what you've dropped are really gyms, and I'm just appreciative of the fact that you really give great insight and good advice. So, wow, one, this was awesome. Like, I hope you had a great time with this, you know what I mean? Because you just gave a lot of insight and a really great conversation to have. And again, we're definitely going to do a part two. So for the person watching this, get ready because there's going to be more to come, But I wanted to end this off with one, is there any way that like if people want to collaborate with you or work with you, how would you suggest they reach out to you? And then I know you mentioned your social media at the beginning, but it doesn't hurt to say it all again. If you want to mention your website, whatever you got coming up, let us know everything because people need to know.
So yeah, artists and producers who want to collab, you can always hit me on social. I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter. So at Is That Kizzy, shoot me a DM, send me a link to your music. If you want to send me loops, feel free to let me know. One thing I will say is I don't want to be a dick here, but I'm gonna be a dick. If you're gonna send me Pain loops or Nardo Wick loops or Lil Baby loops, no offense, but I don't want them because my main focus is R&B. So I want to work with R&B artists. And honestly, to artists, this is more specifically to artists. If you send me your music and I really do fuck with it, odds are I will work with you for free and I will help develop and break you because as an A&R, I have the knowledge to do that, and I want the R&B scene to really start popping. Um, my website is isthatkizzy.com. All my beats are on there. And as far as what I have coming up, I'm going to be launching my sample making course at the end of this month. It's going to be kind of a Zoom group classroom open forum format thing where I'm going to be going over the basics. Like it's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, I have it structured as a 5 or 4 week program. where we're going to start with basic music theory. We're going to go for sound selection, effects, arrangement, and then how to market loop kit, how to get your loops out to bigger producers and whatnot. So we're going to be covering all of that. And for artists who want to learn more about the business side, how to break and how to do stuff like that, I'm doing consultations for a relatively affordable price. So shoot me a DM if you're interested, and I'll be more than happy to set something up. We can chop it up, and I'll be more than happy to help people get the knowledge they need and take them to the next level.
Man, that's incredible, and I appreciate you being open to doing this. I keep saying we're gonna get some placements this year, so I'm putting that energy out that we're gonna get a placement.
Yes, sir.
I do want to be in that R&B bag, so we are. I feel like I got more of like when I use your loops, I've given you more of like a trap soul type vibe, but it's still working. Like
Yeah,
I still feel like I mix enough where it's not completely off mark. Um, so we're definitely gonna get some placements. I'm putting that out there to everyone.
yes,
Now
we are.
don't hit them up and be like, yo, can you get me a placement? All right. Me and
Yeah, please.
Kizzy, we've known each other for some time and we developed a relationship. So don't be coming in his inbox thinking that like he's about to give you the world right now with the placement game. Like, it's all all in time for everybody. But no, I just want to say thank you again for doing this, man. Like this was super dope. We're definitely gonna do a part two. And again, thank you to the person watching this. And yeah, have a good one. Thanks, man. I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
you.
Thank you for having me, bro. And I'm super excited for part two.
Same here.